Trails Collective, what's shaking? Ian here for the weekly rundown for September 30th, 2020. How's it going? It's a pretty good weekend on this end. I got to head down Friday night to sleep in the car at World's End Loyal Sock races, and got to the opportunity, I'd say, to head up an aid station at Dry Run for the duration of the 100K event. Big thanks to Jim Milosky, who came down for a full day to pitch in at the aid station as well as a new friend, Mark Andrews Burke, as well, for putting in a good chunk of time. It was a beautiful spot to be for the day, good opportunity to be out there. I don't often get as much time as I'd like to be able to give back and volunteer at others' events, so I am thankful for and appreciative of the time that I am out there. For those of you who maybe don't really necessarily think of volunteering as a fun opportunity, it really is. And a lot of events, particularly this year, where it's been trickier, as you can imagine, to recruit enough volunteers, for sure could use your help. And it's every time I do it, I have a really good time doing it, whether it be course marking or aid stationing or sweeping or really whatever it is. It's a really good way to just spend the time with the community, usually out on the trail. So this was no exception. It was a really wonderful event and a top-notch, really, production of the event. And I'll get into it a little bit more in tonight's or this week's rundown. So hang tight for that. On the, let's see, on the gear front this week, received a few actually, models to wear test from Skechers. One being the Razor 3 here. Hang on. Another one being the Speed Trail. The Razor 3, I'm pretty excited just in the road lineup to compare to the Brooks Hyperion Tempo. This is one that I have, I don't know, maybe 100 or so miles in the Brooks Hyperion Tempo and really like it. And I'm just wondering how close the Razor 3 from Skechers is going to feel to that at a little bit less expensive price point. So I'll put some miles in that starting this week. This past weekend I was able to put some miles into this Speed Trail from Skechers. Skechers is one which I'll mention in the review that I'll eventually do on it, that I've still, I think, had a tough time taking, I think, seriously as a run brand. And I think one of my first exposures to the brand, at least in the trail world, was one of the early years in putting on Whiteface Sky races. And one of their sponsored athletes turned up with a pair of Skechers. And I picked up the shoe and looked at it, and I think we were talking footwear, and the forecast for the second day was just torrential rains, at least overnight, really soaking the course. And I looked at the shoe, and my reaction was basically just like, you're not really going to run in that, are you? And he was really going to run in that, and I don't think he finished the next day. I think he DNF'd and just got hammered on the course. So that kind of made an impression for me for Skechers. But I tried a few on last year at a conference out in Texas and thought they felt pretty good. And there's some pretty cool intentional and I think effective features in this Speed Trail. So a couple runs in, it felt pretty good, but hang tight for a fuller review coming at some point here. Another one that just came through the door today, which I'm really excited about, is one that was supposed to release in June or July, and I was supposed to get a model to wear test a bit ahead of that, but the COVID pinches in manufacturing and shipping and warehousing and all that pushed it back until a release now. And that is the Saucony Switchback 2, a really slick shoe. I had some really good experiences with a Switchback 1 last year. Raced in it up to a 50K in a fairly mixed trail. It's not going to be your go-to for a really, I think, technical trail, but I really love the shoe. Really minimal, low stack height, a lot of ground feel, and a really cool design. The Switchback 2, I think, improves some of the shortcomings of the Switchback 1 in terms of the integrity of the shoe. We'll still see, I think, Wolverine as a parent company isn't necessarily known for the most durable products, but I think it's a really slick design that improves some of those shortcomings. Still a model that uses the BOA lace system to cinch up the model. This one has a shroud or a sheath over the top in place of last year's boa top base boa lacing system. Otherwise, it feels, I think, pretty similar underfoot. So I'll dig into this one. I haven't had it on for any miles on the runs yet, but really slick, and I'm looking forward to putting some miles in. So hang tight for this review when I can get some miles in as well. Let's see. Some of the stuff, what happened in the media. Let's go through just a few pieces there. Chris Riston of MassUltra.com. If you haven't checked it out, if you're for sure, if you're in Massachusetts and you haven't found it yet, find your way to Mass Ultra. He does a really nice job, has a history as a reporter and tying it in or pulling it together for the trail and ultra scene. He wrote a nice article on the running of the Massachusetts Village Ultra, which we'll plug in the link for. Ellie Pell with the Trails Collective interview series, interviewed rock star Debbie Livingston, released this past Friday. Check that out. The Cultura crew, they had on a little bit of jackass time with Kate Gelato. You can check that out. Jay Friedman and his Pain Cave podcast. They went into 20 questions with a 24-hour national age group record holder Bob Hearn. Check that out. And let's see, with a title that makes me think of some of the earlier Radio Lab episodes, Chris and Ellie in their Hamstrings and Heartstrings podcast, just released, I think today, they elicit and reveal confessions from listeners. I haven't listened to it, but sounds revealing. And then Ryan Plockelman on his podcast Adventure Jogger, newer podcast, it's a spin-off of East Coast Trail and Ultra podcast series, interviewed Eric Kosek in an episode titled FKT for the Whole Family. So check that out as well. And great job, Ryan, continuing on. He's an individual that did a really great job with the East Coast Trail and Ultra podcast, developed and earned a really great following, and has spun off with a new good venture here. So great job, Ryan. Let's dig in on the FKT front. Connecticut, Robert and Maria Hanna, 9 hours, 27 minutes for the Richard Goodwin Trail. In Massachusetts, Robin Bradica, 4 hours, 23 minutes for the Upper Charles Trails out and back format. In Maryland, Lee Weil, 8 hours, 12 minutes for the Seneca Creek Greenway Trail. In New Hampshire, Nina Silich, 5 hours, 57 minutes for the Kinsman Ridge Trail. This just looks like a beast. 15.8 miles, boasting over 6,000 feet of elevation gain. And Nina's mark becomes the new baseline unsupported female mark for that segment. Brett Mazza, 2 hours, 44 minutes for the unsupported Whiteface Passaconaway Loop. He lowered Ben Nephew's time by over 14 minutes, I think, from Ben's mark in 2015. So that's hauling. Nice work, Brett. Chelsea Poisson, 5 hours, 1 minute for the Cannon and Kinsman's Loop. She shaved off 38 minutes off the prior unsupported female mark. Corinne Kwasnik, 19 hours, 28 minutes for the Pemi Loop's 14 Pemi 4000ers configuration. I can't even say it. And I didn't even try to load it into my mapping software because I don't think my software is as tough as that route sounds. I don't even know what 14 Pemi 4000ers means, but at 19 hours and knowing it's a Pemi Loop, it just sounds burly. So nice work, Corinne. In New York, we had the relentless Kelly McDonald, 5 hours, 34 minutes. She's just getting after it weekend after weekend. This time for Panther, Santononi, and I can't even pronounce this one, Kushasagra. She lowered Sarah Nicolai's mark from just weeks ago by nearly 90 minutes. So great job, Kelly, getting after weekend after weekend. Bill Huffman and Jake Stuckey, they were back at it for another self-powered mission and division with 21 hours, 40 minutes for the Lake Placid Niner Challenge. Laura Tuttle, constantly popping up on these FKT boards, I think for at least a couple of years now. I just reached out to her on Facebook, or sent her a Facebook friend request, just because I'm thinking she pops up so much in these mountain routes that she's got to be posting some cool stuff and just going some really beautiful and inspiring places. So I'm hoping to follow along in some of your adventures, Laura. 2 hours, 58 minutes for the Pitch Off Mountain section. Nick Arndt, one of my fellow crew members for Sarah Kai's Adirondack 46 attempts. He went with a new baseline mark for this new route that he set, or that he pieced together and was really looking forward to. 7 hours, 42 minutes for the High Peaks Wilderness Traverse. It's a spectacular looking 34-mile point-to-point with just a very reasonable, but nothing crazy, 6,300 feet of gain. So nice work, Nick. It looks like a pretty cool route. And then also 3 hours, 40 minutes for the Gray, Skylight, and Marcy connection. And for that one, he took nearly 40 minutes off of Frankie DeSoma's time from 2019. So that's a pretty good week there, Nick. Nice work, man. And Sarah Kai's looking recovered and putting the base to work, getting back at it with 3 hours, 50 minutes for the Dix Range Traverse. She took over an hour off of Laura Tuttle's mark from 2019 and was only 20 seconds off of the second fastest men's time set ever for that section from, I think it was Frankie DeSoma set that. And Sarah, thanks for some beta for weighing in for me. I'm headed out to set off for the Dix Range this Friday and really looking forward to getting up there. Now let's see, in PA, Kevin Zoich and Kyla De Jesus, 5 hours, 27 seconds for the Wissahickon Green Ribbon Trail. In Virginia, Joshua Goad, 7 hours, 22 minutes for the Catawba Triple Crown. Wow, this route wasn't even, this was still warm, or hadn't even cooled off yet. He bested the prior unsupported mark, which was just set on September 12th by 32 minutes. So great job, Josh. And in Vermont, Liz Learman, 1 hour, 25 minutes for the Mount Mansfield Vertical K. That looked like a pretty fun one. That would be cool for others to try to go pick off. So great job to all you FKTers out there. So for the in-person event results from this past weekend, it was a pretty packed weekend. There are a couple that I missed with last week's rundown in announcing during the rundown, and that was Laurel Highlands. And then I also missed the result for Kismet Cliff Run. The Kismet Cliff Run was one that was, I think, one of my top choices for just really cool looking races for this year. The schedule got all kind of twisted around and I wasn't able to do it, but it's definitely on my radar for next year. So I had missed those results from last week, but it looked like a really competitive race 2 weekends ago. Pretty good field, really solid runners in the mix. And so definitely keep that one or look it up for a destination race. And then I missed Laurel Highlands running this weekend, and it was crazy because a good friend is one of the new RDs who took on the torch for caring for the Laurel Highlands. And so I knew it was happening, but just spaced on announcing it for last week. So that also went down. But let's dig into some of these results in a really busy weekend. So the Pemberton 24, this was a festival of 5Ks that went off. The format was 5K starting every hour, and participants could run as many or as little as they like. And the scoring system was a bit convoluted, but it was pretty cool. I think the organizers created, it was a point system that leveled the playing field, I think, for genders, and really just teased out just the toughness of these competitors with that playing field a bit leveled. So the overall win went to Liz Azeki with 135 points, and so they were getting points. You got points for these 5Ks for the number that you completed, for completing some in the like midnight, 2 a.m., 4 a.m., whatever hours to go through the night. You got extra points for podium placements within your gender, and extra points if you did all of them. So it was a really, I don't know, a really cool format, which I think added some spice to the format. So the overall win went to Liz Azeki with 135 points. Second went to Maria Miller. And third, who ended up being the top male in the mix, was Aaron Ellison with 100 points. So pretty cool. And hopefully if it comes in time, as one of the voices from the collective weighing in on the event will be Richard Wayshner, who was the third place male in the mix.
Hi, my name is Richard Wayshner. I was last on the Trail Collectives back in May. This is a quick recap of what's been going on since then. This past weekend did the Pemberton 24-hour running festival put on by Trent Swanson, who does the Algonquin Ultras. The event had us doing 24 hours of 5K starting on Friday at 7 p.m. and finishing Saturday at 7 p.m. It was a point-based system, really fun event. Trent did a great job with keeping everybody socially distanced, but having still a good time. Great DJ and Gabe and the rest of the crew and volunteers, thank you so much. Upcoming, going to be doing the Stone Mill 50 miler. That's going to be November 14th, and then working on an FKT attempt for the Quad State Challenge for the Appalachian Trail. Hopefully everybody's able to get out there and start doing some races soon, and hopefully I'll see you out on the trail. Have a great day. Bye.
Friday, September 25th was the Yeti 100 mile endurance run. This being just a party of an event, would grow on its own. A great, I think, course configuration for newer runners and vets alike, being pretty flat and I think pretty accessible to everybody. And also being a Western States qualifier adds to the demand for it. So this fills up fairly early, but it's a 100-mile, gains only 3,000 feet over that 100. So again, ends up being, I think, a really accessible course for people looking for a beginning ultra if you can get in. I think it's maybe lottery based now, so that makes it obviously a little bit unbankable and trickier, but check it out. So weeks ago, we had mentioned that their slogan is where debauchery is welcome. And we had mentioned in that rundown, as opposed to focusing on some of the top-seeded entrants, I think just based on the nature of the Yeti crew and the party scene and supportive of everybody and getting in under the wire, instead of the top contenders, we focused in on the DFL, or the dead fucking last podium contenders. They were Miranda Riley, Tara Pagano, and Eva Jones. Unfortunately, none of them either showed or finished or DNF'd. So I guess that focus didn't work at all. It did look like there were a good number, though, racing for the cutoff, which oddly, for this event, if you check it out, is set at 29.2 hours, or 12:13 and 30 seconds p.m. as the cutoff time. And so I suppose that kind of fits with the whole theme of where debauchery is welcome, because it's just kind of ridiculous in terms of the time set. So if anybody in the Yeti community wants to cue me in on what that's all about, 29.2 or 12:13:30 is a cutoff, let me know. But it did remind me of the Bill Bowerman clip from the movie Without Limits, and Bowerman calling a team meeting for 7:27.
Why does Bowerman call a team meeting for 7:27? What's wrong with 7:30?
Hold on. I'll tell him why, gentlemen. 7:27 provokes the question, why 7:27? And everybody gets here at 7:27 to find out why.
But at the front of the Yeti 100 were some pretty wicked fast times. Patrick Reagan was the overall winner in a time of 13:33, and Nicole Monette for the women in 16:19, and both crushed the prior course records. So great job to everybody out there. Let's see, on Saturday, September 26th, the Squatchung Surprise, another fun entity focused on just parties of events. This year it was a 3-hour, 6-hour, and a 5K at the Watchung Reservation in Mountainside, New Jersey. And put on, as I mentioned, by the party people, the Sasquatch Trail Running entity. And this event was one where your fate is influenced by the luck of the golf ball bucket draw, also adding a little flavor to it. In the kiddie race, or AKA the 5K, out of 30 finishers, Dave Gilbert took the win in 23:26, and Linda Farinelli in the women's field in 28:36. Sounds like there was a little drama there when I talked to Kim today, actually. Where I think maybe some of the leaders, or the leader, I think went the wrong direction on a loop, and most of the field ended up following. So I think that created a little bit of chaos, a little bit of tension. But hey, so it goes with trail running. And in the 3-hour, Robert Ivan checked off the most mileage with 17.9 for the overall win, with Len Huffman and Michael Steiner not far off with 17.4 miles for the 3-hour. Erica Einhorn tallied the most for the women's field was 16.1. And in the 6-hour, Kieran Williams bested second by a half mile, finishing with 35 miles under his belt in that 6 hours. The women's field looked tight. Tony Canora edged Courtney Cruz by 0.2 of a mile to finish with 27.4 miles. So that must have been pretty cool to watch. And this is another one where we got some voices in from the collective, which I'm stoked about. We will hopefully have a clip here from RD Kim, cueing us into just the nature of the event and how it went down. And then from one of my teammates, Len Huffman, who was one of the entrants in the 3-hour. So we will cue them here.
Hey everyone, my name is Kim Levinsky. I'm the owner and race director for Sasquatch Trail Running in New Jersey. Thank you, Ian, for inviting me on to share a Squatchy update on what is going on with Sasquatch. We just had our first in-person event since March. We were at the Squatchung Reservation in Mountainside, New Jersey for our annual Squatchung Surprise trail race. We offered a 5K, 3-hour, and 6-hour event, and it went really, really well. We had over 100 runners come out, ton of volunteers. It was safe and fun, and everybody had a really great time. The basic format of this race is pretty crazy. There's a bucket of golf balls that are different colors, and before every loop, our volunteers reaching into the bucket. Whatever golf ball color that they pull out is the loop color that the runner is going to go out and complete. So just like the name says, Squatchung Surprise, the runners do not know what their course is going to be for the day. Every loop is different that they pull out, and no one is running the same exact course. So it's very, very fun. It's a fun race to watch as a race director and our volunteers. And we just want to say thank you to all the runners that came out and our volunteers that just made it an awesome day out on the trails. So we're excited to share that we have a couple more events slated for 2020. We will be at the South Mountain Reservation in West Orange, New Jersey on October 17th for our last Squatch standing event. This event puts a twist on the backyard ultra style. It was inspired by Scott English. Shout out to you, Scott. I know you're probably watching this. He's with Salt City Runners up in upstate New York. And Scott came down to one of our races a couple years ago and told us about this race format that he put together. And he said, you guys got to do it. I'll help you, work out the logistics, and we did just that. So we put a little Squatchy twist on it. So with our last Squatch standing event, we have a 1-mile trail loop, and runners have to complete that 1 mile in the allotted time or they get eliminated. But the trick is that time is coming off the clock every loop. So with our race, we start the first mile at 18 minutes. Then it drops down to 17, 16, so on and so forth until we get down to 1 runner. So it's a very fun event for you to come out and test yourself, push yourself against the race clock to see how far you can go. So that's on October 17th, and then we are back at the South Mountain Reservation on November 28th for our annual Squatchy Leftovers 5K, 10K event. And that is the Saturday after Thanksgiving, so it's a great event to come. Bring your family. You can run or hike that race distance of 5K or 10K. And then we're working on finalizing the permit for our final event of 2020, which is in mid-December for our Ugly Sweater Night Trail Race. It's just like it sounds. You're going to put on your ugliest sweater, come out to the park after sunset, and you're going to have your headlamps, and you're going to do a little bit of night trail running or hiking. So this is a great opportunity if you've never tried it to come out and dip your toes into the Squatchtastic world of night running or hiking. So here at Sasquatch, we are all about having fun, and we are super passionate about getting more people out on the trails. It doesn't matter your age or your pace. We truly mean that. And just to give you an example, this past weekend, we had a runner who was 88 years old come out and complete the race, and we had the youngest kid was 6 years old. So we want families to come out. We want new people to come out and try trail running or hiking for the first time. And we are also very passionate about getting more women out on the trails. We do a lot to make that happen, and our races are at least 50% women for 2020, which is very, very exciting for us. So you can learn more about Sasquatch Trail Running at sasquatchtrailrunning.com, and we are also very active on social media. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram at Sasquatch Trail Running. All right, until we see you on the trails, keep it squatchy.
What's up, Trail Collective? I want to talk about a race I did this weekend. Yes, a live event. In New Jersey, we have a lot of trail races going on live now, put on by like NJ Trail Series, Run Life Events, and Sasquatch Trail Runners, which is the race I did this last weekend. I did the Sasquatch Surprise at Squatchung Reservation. The Sasquatch Trail Runners put on some pretty unique events. I believe their motto is every race is a trail party. This weekend's race there was a 5K and then a 3-hour and 6-hour. For the 3-hour and 6-hour, The format was there were 4 different loops, a 2-mile, a 3-mile, an almost 4-mile, and a little more than 5-mile. At beginning, for each loop, the contestants, a golf ball was drawn, and you had to pick the loop corresponding to that color. And each time you came back, you got to go ahead and pick that. You picked another golf ball, you went out another loop. There was a black golf ball where he gave you the choice of picking whatever loop you wanted to go. They had a mulligan where if you picked a golf ball that you did not like, you could pay $20, which went toward charity, and go ahead and repick another golf ball. Also unique, at the end of the event, in the last half hour, you had the option of switching to a half-mile road loop to go ahead and get as many miles as you can before the end of the time limit. The race was COVID friendly. They had zones set up of where you had to go ahead and put up your face mask. You went ahead and checked in. You picked up your finisher's medal right at the beginning, handmade by the race director. Also beautiful for placements awards, also handmade. It's a great event. It was lots of fun. The attitude, everybody out there was great. I can't wait to go to their next race, which is going to be this Last Scotch Standing, which is a last man standing event where you have a 1-mile loop and the time available to finish that 1 mile keeps decreasing every loop.
The Iron Masters Challenge went down. The 50K was canceled. The 15K was still running. This was at Pine Grove Furnace State Park in Gardner's, PA. No results were yet posted at the time that I was filming here. Jimmy McCaffrey, Live Out Loud. His Live Out Loud running's Blue to Blue Challenge. This one was in New Haven, Connecticut, and billed as Connecticut's hardest 50K. It was making use of the Regicides and Quinnipiac trails, and looked like it really mixed in Beast Coast technicality, and it looks like it really lived up to that.
Hey gang, what's up? Jimmy Mack from Live Loud Running here, talking about last week's Blue to Blue Challenge. Starts in New Haven, climbs up a ridge, goes 16 miles out to the town of Prospect, turns around and comes back. It's a little bit more than a 50K. It's got about 6,500 feet of climbing, and as you can see here, it's pretty freaking technical. This race is an absolute joy to put on. This is the second year of it. Put a small field the first year, put it on as a fat ass just to sort of see if it would work. And of course, it was supposed to go off in May this year, and everything got pushed back because of COVID. And it went off without a hitch, and had a great race. The guys took it out hard. Dan Bates and Ben Nephew were leading at the turn, followed by Justin Kowski by about 11 minutes. And then Justin ended up catching those guys and won by about 20 minutes. And then the ladies field, Deb Livingston led wire to wire. And it was really exciting to watch Deb. She's focused and she's awesome on this technical stuff. And Connecticut represents pretty hard. We've got some great runners here. We've got some gnarly trails and a really rad community. And, everybody helped this thing go off without a hitch. So there you have it. It was a really fun race to put on. Really awesome folks came out to do it. We had Deb Livingston was the ladies winner with a new course record, and Justin Kowski was the men's winner with a new course record. And I'm just really psyched for this race for next year. Decided to move it to September permanently just because the weather was so cooperative and the trails were in such great condition. And come on, check us out.
From what I hear so far from teammate Ben Nephew and a couple others, that there were at least a number of entrants who made a little bit of a skin and blood donation to the gods of the course out there on the trails. So taking some diggers on that technicality. And the competition looked pretty fun and stout. Debbie Livingston, who I'm hoping will weigh in here in a second also. I'm going to weigh her in now. Deb Livingston, take it.
Hi there, this is Debbie Livingston. I live in Connecticut. We all know, for all of us, this year has been quite different in the trail running scene. A lot of my races, actually all my races, were canceled up until recently. Most of the summer I ended up doing quite a few FKTs all around Connecticut, most of them on the Blue Blaze Trail system, mostly maintained by the Connecticut Forest and Parks Association, which we're very fortunate to have in our state. The longest one was from Monadnock all the way to the Connecticut shore, and that was about 245 miles of trail, self-supported, with my husband, sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night on the trail. So that was quite interesting back in June. The most recent one was the Mattabesset Trail, and that was 60 miles, and that was in one big push, partly supported by my husband meeting me on the trail. Mostly it was just me and my mind and getting out there and doing it. But it was so much fun to get back to an actual trail race where you're aiming to find someone up on the trail in front of you, and you're trying to stay ahead of the people behind you. And that was called the Blue to Blue Challenge, 50K, on the Regicide and the Quinnipiac Trail, which are blue trails, obviously. And I had a really great time there. It's almost all rock, which is my favorite type of trail. Lots of up and downs, about 6,600 feet of elevation gain and loss along the course, because it isn't out and back. I pushed hard and had a strong finish, and my goal was under 7 hours, and I just got it by 6:59:46. Ended up first woman at the age of 45 years old. I can still dance on those rocks. So it was an awesome time, and looking forward to more racing in our future.
So Debbie just hammered it. She finished, and I think it was roughly an hour ahead of the women's runner-up in 6:59. Just moving. And in the men's field, it looked like Dan Bates and Ben Nephew took it out pretty hard in the early miles. A few others that weren't far behind them. And Ben, who any of you who are friends with Ben know that he hasn't been training a whole lot, which is great. The dude's getting old, and he's enjoying his time with sons, particularly on the mountain bike. I'm excited to get up and share some miles with him at the Bold Coast Run up in Maine here in a bit. But in any case, he's jumping back in on occasion. But it looks like his fitness only took him so far, which I can for sure relate to, and just crumbled, it looked like, in the latter miles of the event. So hopefully that was, oh yeah, I can relate to you, Ben, there. So it's good to see you hung in there, but we know how that goes. And Dan looks, Bates looks like he hung in there longer, but the sleeper and FKT giant of the year that I've mentioned seemingly week over week here, Justin Kowski, he hammered both of them in the final segments for the win in 5:48. And I'll post something here that shows some of the splits and a link that you can check out if you're so inclined, as well as the link to the full results page. Great job to everybody out there and to the Live Out Loud crew. Sounded like a great event. Let's go Laurel Highlands. Laurel Highlands, as I mentioned, this is probably one of the originals. This goes back, I think it was their 41st running this year of Laurel Highlands Ultra. 70.5 mile. I've only run it 1 year in a relay fashion, but one of the finishers items from it, which is pretty trademark for that event. But it changed hands in terms of RDs this past year and passed on to Red Point Productions and some co-RDs and friends from prior ventures taking over the mantle and carrying it forward. They had to carry it forward in this year of COVID, which bore a whole lot of new challenges. But the Western States qualifying 70.5 mile ultra went off on Saturday, and the 50K, I believe, on Sunday. There weren't results yet posted at the time that I filmed, and the RD hasn't texted back to me yet, so I can't plug those here. But potentially even better than those, weighing in on this classic will be one of the new RDs and friend Vinny Capadora, as well as ultra legend out of Virginia, one of my collegiate teammates who I think cued me into this, or was my first exposure into the trail ultra world, Greg Cabin Boy Loomis. The boy has a whole crap ton of trail and ultra experiences under his belt. Really wonderful individual that many of you probably have crossed paths with, whether it be regionally or on a nation-wide scale of trail and ultra running. So both Vinny and Greg are going to weigh in here. So take it away on Laurel Highlands, guys.
Hi, this is Jim with Red Point Productions. This past weekend, we were fortunate enough to put on the Laurel Highlands Ultra in beautiful western Pennsylvania. This is a 41-year-old race, 70 miles, point to point. It starts with an amazing climb out of a small whitewater rafting town called Ohio Pile. And in the first 10 miles, it has about 4,000 feet of elevation change. After that, it doesn't get much easier. It stays pretty technical. It's flowing single track with stunning views and amazing rock formations. This year was a little bit different, obviously, with COVID and an extended start time and small wave starts. But the feel of the race remained the same. Lots of history, lots of tradition, amazing racers, great volunteers, and we were pretty thankful to be a part of it.
Hi, my name is Greg Loomis, and I'm an ultra runner that lives here in Richmond, Virginia, and I'm a longtime friend of the good man Ian Golden. Ask him sometime about running cross country in the trails of the Finger Lakes in the late 90s, and he'll probably bring up some stories involving myself and some other good friends. And this weekend, I got to do something that I haven't done in this horrible 2020. COVID is killing everything, so I haven't done any races and haven't pinned on a number until this weekend. And I went and ran a race that I had done years ago, one of ultra running's longest continuous events, the Laurel Highlands 70 miler. In more recent years, they've also had a 50K and a relay, but it's, I believe, the 41st consecutive year that they've run the 70 miler, making it one of the oldest continuous run ultras in the U.S. And a great race in its simplicity. It's 70 miles, point to point, single track trail, the entire way. No fire roads, and it is conveniently marked with a concrete obelisk-shaped mile marker every mile. So as you run along, you can tick them off, and that can be both a blessing and curse as you're struggling, like I was for a while, and you're like, man, where is that marker that can wear on you? But I wanted to talk about a couple things to give it for the rundown. Basically, just to let you know that that's a fantastic event. And they also put on a 50K this year because of permit restrictions. They ran the 50K on Sunday and the 70 with the 70 relay on Saturday. So normally it's the same day, one-day event, but they had it split it up so that the permit would allow a certain number of people on the trail. And they did a great job. So certain things that have happened this year, I feel, as a longtime ultra runner, I've been doing ultras since 1997, that maybe this is an improvement. So one of the things that I really enjoyed was starting waves. So rather than have 100 people on start line at once, and you're in that conga line going up the big first climb, and in your mind you're like, am I holding up somebody behind me? Am I overrunning to stay with this group? You just turn into yourself. 5 people started. We all immediately kind of set in our own rhythm, and off we went. Other changes that I enjoyed were a little bit more of a shift towards simplicity and maybe even cleanliness. You know, rather than have a bowl with M&Ms sitting on a table that, you know, the 50 people in front of me all stuck their sweaty hand into, so that they're all gunked together and the color is dripped off from. There's just individual packets. Let me pick up my own packet of M&Ms and bust out towards the next aid station. Easy to carry, easy to keep clean. Aid station volunteers were fantastic. They were wearing masks the whole time, making sure people weren't touching a lot of things on the table. And they simply placed a sign 100 yards out from the aid station saying mask up, your aid is close. Some other things I like is maybe this is making it a little bit more like it used to be, and not to be such an old timer, but a little bit less hoopla, limitations on crews, less of a production. Let's just go run in the woods, mark me a course, put me a drop bag out there somewhere, have some water refill stations, and let's go. Let's keep it simple. I had a great time and really enjoyed the event. Having it in the fall versus the traditional date, which is usually the first or second weekend of June. In Pennsylvania, that time can be really hot and always sweltering. That trail is very healthy for us with a lot of tall, not exactly old growth, but old trees, and then understory, and then the amazing ferns lining the trails, and so it's super humid. The weather we had this weekend was fantastic. Temps in the 60s and 70s, and the only possible negative was you had less daylight to run. So I was in the first corral. I started at 5:30, so I had 90 minutes, 2 hours in the dark with light. You needed a light source in the beginning, and then depending on how fast you are. I think this year nobody finished before sunset, so then everyone had to get a light out for the finish as well. But there's nothing like spending the entire day, sun up to sundown, running on a trail, single track, making your way. A fantastic event, and the new crew that's doing it. Big props to them for taking on an iconic race and keeping it in that kind of same awesome status. One last shout out to the last race director for the last 20 years, Tim Hewitt, who was running the aid station at mile 57. Talk about a superstar. He inspired me to finish the thing up by letting me know that he's still at it, doing amazing feats in ultra running at the age of 65. This year in 2020, he set the all-time record for the Iditarod Trail on foot, averaging 52 miles per day, dragging a sled through the Arctic with all his gear and provisions when temperatures got down to negative 65. Wow. So hope to see you all out on the trail again sometime. Thanks for letting me help out with the roundup, Ian.
And so the last one that I almost got into, but I figured I'd save for the last of Saturday. The rugged, tough, remote, and beautiful World's End Ultras. They had reconfigurations on their own. They had to push back onto their half marathon fall classic date, which was this past weekend. They had to drop the 50K just based on limitations on overall numbers, and to be able to maximize the Western States qualifying 100K distance. Both are run in the beautiful and rugged World's End State Park and Loyalsock State Forest in north central PA. That's a couple hours south of where I'm based. It was my first time down there, I believe, to that area, and it looks like a really amazing spot to go back to and run. World's End is one that has seemingly always fallen on about the same weekend as my races, Cayuga Trails. So it's one that I've always I think, have loved to have gone down and run, or even volunteer at, but I've just never been able to. So with the scheduling shift this year, I was at least able to get down on the volunteer front, and it didn't disappoint. It looks like a really beautiful, burly course, a really well done production, and just a really great community. The half saw 141 finishers, with David Endress taking the overall win in 2:02, and with the top female on the day going to Amy Kohler in 2:29. Let's see, for the 100K distance, the ultra, Andrew Simpson ran off the front from the early miles, moving solidly all day. When he came through my aid station at Dry Run, he said he was just basically running paranoid because you don't really get overlap with this course. It's basically a giant loop style configuration. You don't quite know who's ever behind you and how close they are. But as he moved away and we just kept tracking runners, it was clear that he was going to go unchallenged. And if anything, I think he opened up his lead in the 20 miles after he passed through my aid station. So he took the unchallenged win at 11:32. Great job, Andrew. And the top female podium spot went to Cassandra Spittler. I believe she was from Rhode Island, if I remember right, talking to her at the aid station in 15:02. And she also looked really good coming through. And she was just a minute and a half ahead of second place finisher Becky Kosek. And that was crazy as well. But of the starting lineup of 100, and I'll tell you why for Becky here in a second. For the 108 or 109 who started that morning for the 100K distance, there were 64 finishers, and it seemed like many of them were basically timed out or missed the cuts. It's a hard course, yeah, I mean, you got to be working and you got to be moving to make it through. So that was a pretty high DNF rate rather, and I think largely ahead of the tough time cuts. So you definitely have to earn your finish and buckle at World's End. And so I'm stoked this week to try something a little bit different, which is to bring in a handful of voices from the collective to reflect on various vantage points of World's End. And so in a bit, I'm going to close out this week's rundown with those voices, and I'll take you through who they're going to be. So hang tight on that one. On Sunday, September 27th, Steep Endurance was back at it, almost back-to-back fashion here, coming off of Macedonia, putting on the Angevine Farm half marathon. It's a scenic rolling track course in Warren, Connecticut, and they were running on a COVID pushback date, and they added a 50K into the mix. Let's see, there were... most of the event's top times came this year. I think last year may have been the first year, but really fast times this year. Mitch Morris edged out second by just over a minute in 1 hour 32 minutes, and Ingrid Wells, she was out front for the women's win in 1:53. For the inaugural 50K, Brandon Telesky took the win in 4:54 with Robin Bradica in 6:45. Otherwise, we'll bounce on to the Mid-Penn Trailblazers Dam Half Marathon Trail Race. This is at RB Winter State Park in Mifflinburg, PA, and it was part of the 2020 Rocksylvania series. It looks like a fun rolling course with a few rock gardens, and they had a signature, as we've mentioned in prior rundowns, 700-foot half-mile Stairway to Heaven climb before a nice downhill stretch into the finish. Looks like Tristan Amel, a young buck at age 17, took the overall win in 1:57. Looked like the excitement, though, appeared to be the race for the top old dude, with Jim Wanger as clearly as good once as he ever was, edging third-place finisher and other old dude Kip Hoffman by a mere 3 seconds. Settle down, old dudes. And for the women, Mira Minard took the win in 2:03. Let's see, a whole host of in-person events coming up, and we're going to focus on those versus the virtual. And I'm going to go forward a little bit here into October, just to give you the heads up, just because rather than dropping them on you last minute, the week of, it'll probably be a little bit useful for any of you who are still looking for maybe some of in-person events to jump into over this next month. So tonight, we'll have the Hump Day, I shouldn't say but Blue Mountain Resort in PA will put on the Hump Day 5K if you want a little quick ascending and descending for a midweek jaunt. The New Jersey Trail Series is putting on 3 days at the fair in Augusta, New Jersey. This is one that I missed because it got pushed back from its original historic May date, and I just missed the pushback. It runs the gamut of endurance distances, which includes marathon, 50K, 6 hour, 12 hour, 24 hour, 48 hour, 72 hour, and the Grand Poobah, 144 hours, 6 days, which I think is starting as I'm filming today, Monday, the 20th, well now it's 12:45 a.m. right now on the 29th, so I think they technically started yesterday, the 28th. So that's a lot going on with 3 days at the fair. All of the events or the courses, they use a certified 1 mile loop, so I think you can even get a Boston qualifying time out of the marathon distance, and it's over a crushed cinder path around the fairgrounds. So we'll plug the link. If you're still looking, registration is still open at Run Sign Up. The Midstate Massive Ultra, I thought this one was canceled, but it looks like it's still going in New Ipswich, New Hampshire. Also for Wednesday, let's see, what day is this? Is coming up, I think it's, October 10th and 11th. They have distances of 30, 50, and 100 miles. And there's already 197 registered. So as of when I was looking at the information on Monday the 28th, there was only 3 spots left in the event, and that was all in the 100-mile distance. So I imagine there's not too many of you who are going to jump in last minute to a 100-miler, but it looks like a pretty cool and burly course. Runs from New Hampshire to Massachusetts on the historic Midstate Trail. And so again, only 3 spots remained, and they may still be there as of when this goes live. So check it out on Ultra Sign Up. Saturday, October 3rd, Bubba's Backyard Ultra, the last person standing format event in Center Conway, New Hampshire. The course uses a 3.5 mile, mostly for a single track loop with 250 feet of gain and 1 aid station midway, and camping starting Friday night. So it looks like a pretty good community event. Registration is open through this Friday, so get on it if interested. The CatTail Trail Marathon, put on by friend and teammate Mike Sudi and Charlie Gattle. This is just a beautiful fall marathon course. It runs point-to-point format through the Catskills, and it basically ends up being a 3rd segment in that Catskill range. First segment picked off by the Escarpment Trail Run, just an absolute classic of an event. Next middle segment of 50 miles, 54 miles, I think technically, is Manitou's Trail Run, arguably probably one of the toughest 50 milers in the country. Check out Manitou's, also a pretty tough scenic event. Goes over the Devil's Path, which is really just a really fun scenic section. And then Cat's Tail ends up being the 3rd piece in the equation. And so that's running this weekend. They had also COVID modifications considerations where they had to limit the event size to 50 people, and that includes entrants and volunteers, so really tight. So that field is full, but keep it on your radar for next year around this time. Sunday, October 4th, Black Forest Ultra. It's a tough, remote, and rugged 100K in North Bend, PA. It had the tagline of Diabolically Epic, and the event starts at 12:01 a.m. with a 65-mile lollipop configuration, which offers 13,400 feet of elevation gain and a 19-hour cutoff. RD Dave, who just is the RD for World's End as well, just this past weekend. That is a tough back-to-back. Great job, Dave, for taking that on, and for the whole community of volunteers, or army of volunteers, that's supporting making that happen. Dave just mentions that Black Forest is probably as tough, if not tougher, than World's End. So, and I think just the format starting at 12:01 a.m., there's not that many events that do that. There's a couple out there. But this one, I think, wasn't really on my radar as one that did do that. And that just sounds like a pretty, I think, cool and appealing angle to it. To a certain extent, I think it would be easier to pick off miles starting at 12:01 a.m. than going into them late in the race. So this may be one that I'd be into for next year. So keep it on your radar to potentially join me. And as of filming, a few spots still remain for this year. So reach out to Dave at blackforestultra.com if you are interested, and in case there's still any left. Saturday, October 10th, the Tesla Hertz Run. This is put on by Vinny and Nicole Capador of Happily Running, and Vinny, who we just had a clip from, one of the new RDs from Laurel Highlands. This is one that's gotten good reviews over the years, a nice little community. They offer a 10-miler, 50K, 50-miler, 100K, and 100-miler. They use a 10-mile trail loop in the Pine Barrens Long Island Greenbelt Trail, and they have an aid station midpoint in that 10-mile loop. Currently about 110 entrants, and their permits are still a go for this year. So check it out if you want a well-supported, good opportunity for multiple distances. Let's see. Sunday, October 11th, you have Steep Endurance's Mohawk Mountain Race. It's a 10K and 8-hour vertical challenge are the options this year. An opportunity to just pummel your quads into submission via serpentine loop on the Mohawk Mountain ski area. The 10K gives you 2,600 feet of gain, which is pretty solid. And the vert challenge is 575 feet of gain each loop. Registration is open through October 9th, and check it out on Ultra Sign Up. Let's see, Green Monster Trail Challenge, a beautiful and burly 15K, 25K, 50K. Just beauties run in Wellsboro, PA. This popular gem also sells out and already has. And they have a lengthy wait list, I believe, as well. But keep it on your fall radar for 2021. Tussey Mountainback, one that many of you know as one of the, I think it's the USATF 50-mile, I think it's classified as road championship, if I'm remembering right. Even though I think it's a really forgiving road course. Some elevation gain and loss to it, but nothing too crazy. And I think mostly over hard pack gravel or dirt roads. So that's still running in Boalsburg, PA. COVID modifications this year include a reduced field size, solo ultra only, and aid stations offering fluids and drop bag format only. Registration is still open through October 10th, so check it out on Ultra Sign Up, and that's Tussey Mountainback. The Sugarloaf uphill climb, point-to-point ascent with gains 2,500 feet over 2.5 miles up Sugarloaf Mountain in Maine. This looks tough and absolutely beautiful as well. It was one that was also on my radar as seemingly a pretty cool event to go do. I just didn't know if I could make the haul for a VK. It appears though it's still running in 2020, but maybe registration has capped out. But another one to keep it on your radar for 2021. The Big Brad Ultras, 50K and 50 mile, run in the Bradbury Mountain State Park and the area surrounding Pownell, Maine. This is also one that's, I think, pretty a great one within the Maine trail and ultra community. Sounds nicely technical with 4,500 feet of gain in the 50K and 7,500 feet for the 50 mile over a predominant single track. So it does sound like one to travel for, and that is also on my radar for one for the future in Maine. Registration is closed for this year. But again, another one just to keep on your radar for 2021. Saturday, October 17th, the Sinnemahone Trail Runs and Ultra. They offer 12K, 25K, and 50K options in Emporium, PA. And this one sounds like a pretty cool event. It's basically a series. You can do one of the events or all three. In the spring, I believe, maybe it was April, the first part of the series is a paddle. The second part, which I think is sometime in the summer, maybe it was July, is a gravel bike race. And then the third part is this trail run and ultra in the fall. So I think pretty cool would be to piece all three of those together. The 12K option for just the trail run component gives you over 1,800 feet of climbing and 7 miles. And the 25K, 50K seems to mirror that trend in terms of elevation profile. The course itself, I think, sounds and looks pretty smooth, and definitely one to keep on your radar as just, again, a pretty cool format. Registration is open through October 15th, and check it out at Ultra Sign Up. Sunday, October 18th, another one that just capped out. So I guess I'm plugging all these events in advance for you, but a bunch of them have already capped or registration's closed. But letting you know anyway, and ones to keep on your radars for next year to know which ones do cap out. Call of the Wilds Mountain Fest, 25K, 50K, run over beautiful rugged courses in Waterville, PA. It has a boatload of elevation change and technical terrain, and just another PA gem. So keep it on your radar. They're working with also COVID restrictions in place this year. Registration closed at a smaller number, but their overall registration number has to account for both entrants and volunteers. So that's why I think it was kind of tight with a non-existent wait list for this one. But definitely one to check out for the future. That's called the Wilds Mountain Fest. Saturday, October 24th, Live Loud is back at it with Pachaug. I don't know whether I pronounced that right. Jim, you'll have to correct me there. Trail runs. They give you a half marathon, marathon, and 50K options and a run in the Pachaug, however you pronounce that, State Forest in Voluntown, Connecticut. COVID modifications for 2020 include needing to drop the 50 mile, and they limited each distance to 100 runners with 50 per wave. Registration is open through October 21st on Ultra Sign Up. And there's some virtual events coming up. I'm not going to focus on those because it's already pretty long. We got enough in-person stuff coming up. But they include Plymouth's Long, Hard, and Dirty Ultra that went virtual Shore to Shore 25K, 50K in Suffolk County, in Kings Park, New York, Long Island, I believe. Also went virtual. Rockhopper Racing's Ruse Rampage gives you a rare opportunity at Canicross Division event for this year. And the Batona Trail Races, a virtual 33 and 55 mile format for this year. And that's one that runs in the Jersey Pine Barrens, which would be kind of cool, I think. But what I wanted, which I mentioned earlier, and something that I want to close with for this week, is stoked to again try something a bit different for bringing in a handful of voices in from the collective. And what I'm hoping for is to have basically represented various, I think, vantage points which really speak to the community, which is every event, and just our community at large, which is the trail world. And so I'm really thankful to, I think, have the community of friends to connect with. And so here's what I'm going to try to do. So who you're going to hear from here in some clips to come. You're going to have the most excellent RD, Dave the Hillside Slider Walker, weighing in from the perspective of an RD. You're going to hear from Becky Kosek, just a stud on her own. She was a second place female this year. And speaking a bit on being ready for the event, going hard, and hanging in there when the things don't quite go as planned. Mark Valites, actually Mark, I haven't tried to pronounce your last name. So you're gonna have to correct me after this episode. Shoot me a message, because I'm gonna butcher it. Mark it seems simple, but I can't get it at 1 a.m. here. Valites? All right, we'll get it next round. But the finisher, he's out of the trail and ultra runner, I think mountaineer as well, climber out of the Buffalo area, weighing in on his day, and an even wilder night for him. Navigating the course when your headlamp runs out of juice. So basically keeping on when things, again, don't quite go as planned. Shannon Ray, she was in the field for the 50K, which was cut out secondary to COVID changes, and ended up shifting into a role as running crew and pacer for one of the entrants in the 100K field. So she can weigh in on that. And for those of you who haven't crewed or paced individuals, really look for those opportunities, because it really is a rewarding endeavor. And it's something that I think everybody should do at some point here. And then Sayard Tanis. She'll be weighing in from the vantage point of being a coach. She had several athletes in the mix during that race. And it must have been, I don't know, it just creates, I think, different vantage point. And then Grayce Gillette Drummond on weighing in on just her effort. She looked tough when she came through dry run at mile 41. Focused, she was on it and moving through. But she can weigh in on her effort to give you, I think, yet a different vantage point as an entrant in the mix. Really, events are communities in and of themselves, and there's just so many necessary pieces to the equation and a host of experiences that come out of each of these events. So what I'm going to try to do here is basically bring that together as a collective or a whole. It's basically looking at the same race from multiple vantage points. And so let's see if we can do that. I'm going to try to bring that to life. So that's how we're going to end. We're going to end with each of those clips in succession for the World's End vantage point. And from mine, I guess would be like the 6th or 7th in that mix as just a volunteer heading up an aid station. I really enjoyed being out there. A really beautiful place, an opportunity to give back. And something else that was kind of fun that we did, I just had fun with, was looking at people's shoes and vests coming through. So here, hopefully this week, I'm going to launch I think a contest, which will allow you to take a stab at the #1, I guess, brand of shoes that were on people's feet in the 100K distance. But getting more precise, seeing if you can just stab at what percentage of runners out there were wearing certain brands. And then as part of that, I think I'll raffle off some shoes. So stay tuned for that, but it was pretty cool. So I will check in with you next week. Thanks for tuning in for a long episode tonight. As I've mentioned, hopefully, or I need to each week, thank you to all those who are supporting the Trails Collective out there. Thank you to Ellie Pell, who's putting the time in, doing the interview series. And thank you to all of you who are sharing this in your network. I've run into a good number of people now that have referenced tuning in or watching the Trails Collective or these posts, and I'm really grateful for that. But even more so, if you could just take another minute and just share it in whatever networks that you have, it would really help. If you have the wherewithal, the resources at the moment to come on as a Patreon supporter, that would really help. So far, it's taking a good amount of time, which I love doing, but it doesn't at this point generate any revenue aside from just a small base of Patreon supporters. That is helpful. At some point, we'll work into a revenue model for the Trails Collective, which would make it more sustainable, just not there yet. But thank you to all those who are supporting us in that fashion. So here we go. In the multiple vantage points from World's End 2020 and speaking to trail and ultra at large. I will catch you next week. See ya!
Hey, Trail Collective, Dave Walker here, race director of the World's End Ultra Marathon and World's End Fall Classic. Coming to you from my backyard in beautiful Rock, Sylvania. Coming hot off of the World's End Ultra 100K and the World's End Half Marathon this weekend. Both going on in person during COVID. It was fantastic. I won't lie to you. I was super stoked that we were able to do it this past weekend. That both State Park and Forestry went to bat for us up in Harrisburg. Said, look, races are going to happen. They should happen. Let's do it. And we're allowed to have it. For me, one of the things about World's End is that the races aren't just races. To me, they are family reunions. And I love seeing all my trail friends during these races. So for me to actually be able to see all my friends in person, it was quite amazing. It was a bit magical. It was a little bit weird having the ultra, which is normally in the springtime, way here in September, fall colors. It was great conditions to run. It was the waterfalls were a little low. We haven't had much rain here up in Pennsylvania recently, but the fall colors were just amazing. The trails were very, very dry. I expected a lot of fast times. That didn't quite happen. It was a little more tricky with the dry conditions on the trail, but nonetheless, people got it done. I think we had about 60%, maybe a little less than 60% finishing rate for the ultra, and a good portion of our half marathon field finished. Big shout out to Andrew Simpson of York, PA, and Cassandra Spittler from Middleton, Rhode Island, taking the big win for the 100K. Also, I mean, for Andrew Simpson, I was super happy to see him take the axe home. He's tried a few times to get the big W, and this time he came in and got it done this year. So super stoked. David Andrus from Tyrone, PA, and Amy Kohler from Nazareth, PA, took the big W's for the half marathon. This course is no picnic. A lot of people who've done the 100K and have done the half marathon, they say it's a toss-up which one's harder. Yep, one's longer, but you get a little more time. If you want to win at the half marathon at World's End, you're going to get your ass kicked. Big shout out to Amy for winning her first half marathon. Pretty awesome. I'm super stoked. It was her first half marathon here at World's End State Park. It just gives me all the good warm feelings inside to be able to be her first, her big win and first half marathon. Yeah, so it was a good weekend, I thought, for all things, all the hoops we had to jump through. Big shout out to all of our volunteers that came out, who definitely could have stayed at home, could have isolated, but took a chance and said, look, we're gonna come out and support support our community, support our folks. Thanks to Ian for coming out, doing an aid station for us. Thanks for a state park and forestry for going to got our back, get the races going. For me, what's up next is Black Forest Ultra next weekend, another 100K. We're gonna get it done. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be awesome. It's not the same as World's End. It's a little bit different. It's a little more low key, but it is just as tough as World's End. And we hope to see some people out next weekend, and then we'll look forward in 6 months doing this all over again for the World's End Ultra in the springtime. All right, Trail Collective, stay safe, run happy.
I ran World's End 100K this past weekend. It was my second race of the season and my big one, all that I've been training for. I was excited going in. This would be my third time doing it, and my best time had been 15:03. So my goal was to be sub 15. It started out pretty rough. I was not picking up my feet well enough, and I fell 4 times within the first 10 miles. Banged up, scraped up knee and shoulder, but nothing that slowed me down or took me out. So kept on going. I was second female, running well, not having really any issues and feeling good. I got about halfway done with the race, 32 miles or so in, and I hit a pretty rough spell for a couple miles, and I definitely was getting slower. I was very much looking forward to the next aid station where I would see Eric, and I was second female and about 20 minutes behind her. And I made a wrong turn. It was a really stupid mistake, and I should have realized before I did, but when you think you're right, you don't really second guess it. So it put me back almost a half hour, 28 minutes, I believe. And I was devastated. I knew I had been doing well, and I didn't think that I would be able to overcome this. Eric told me, he understood, and he could understand if I decided to quit, but I never really thought about quitting. I was just really upset that everything I'd worked for, it was my own mistake, and there was probably no coming back from that. I left that aid station, I believe, 5th or 6th girl, and now 50 minutes behind the lead girl. I probably pouted for a mile or so, but then it was like, okay, I knew how much time I had wasted, so at the end I still would know how good or bad of a race it was, and there was still a lot of miles left. And I kept going. The next aid station or two, I saw Eric, and I was making progress. I was passing some people, and I was gaining some of that time back. When I picked him up to finish with me, I picked him up at like mile 43 or 44. He finished the last 20 with me. I was, I think, 20 minutes behind her at that point. And he really tried to push me up the hills. I was really struggling at that point. My uphill climbing was not happening very well, but everything else, I was still good. I felt good. I was able to run, and I came into the last aid station, and I was 11 minutes behind her, and I passed the girl that was in second place. So I was now back in second place and 11 minutes behind the lead girl. The last 6 miles is pretty runnable, and I ran it. I ran the 6 miles, came down the steep descent, came around to the finish line, and we hear cheering, and he's like, I sure hope that's not the girl, because we would have about caught her, and it was. I was a minute and a half behind the lead girl when it came down to the end. So overall, it was a really stupid mistake, but I'm really proud of how I came back from it, and my training definitely was really good. I'm really happy with everything, and there's lots of what ifs, and sure, if I could do it again, I would not make such a dumb mistake. But overall, I came in at 15:04 with losing 30 minutes. I'm pretty happy. So I guess the lesson I learned is to adapt and overcome, because even if you can't make your goal, you need to reset it or something, whatever you need to do so you don't give up.
Hello everyone, my name is Mark Valites. I'm a mid-pack trail and ultra runner from just south of Buffalo, New York. If you want to find me on Instagram, I run the Buffalo Trail and Ultra Runners page. Ran the World's End 100K in Pennsylvania this past weekend and ran into Ian volunteering at one of the aid stations. After he asked me to speak a little bit about some of the fun I had out there, I dealt with it. Fortunately, the focus of my race centered around some headlamp issues. I've run a bunch of longer races. I actually had a different headlamp issue at one last fall. I had no clue when I somehow managed to put my evening headlamp in the wrong drop bag. When I got to where I thought it would be, it was not there, and that was quite a surprise. Same happened at the second bag, but fortunately I got to the third one and it was there. So with that still fresh in my mind, figured I'd be proactive and play this race safe by carrying the little Petzl beanie headlamp I started the race with throughout the day and just use it as a backup for the one later on. World's End is typically in June, but given the pandemic, it was delayed later till September this year, so there's a little bit less daylight than typical. Start was at 5 a.m. and probably covered about 10 miles before I shut my first headlamp off. Threw it in the pack and on I went. My main headlamp is a Petzl Reactic, and I've had it for about 2 years now, and it's been very dependable for me. Pretty solid quality headlamp. I figured I'd only need it for a couple hours, so I didn't bother with the special adapter or backup AAAs that I also have for it. I picked it up right in time at the 50-mile aid station. World's End's 63.8, so put it on a little bit after that and been running with someone else this time, and we only went for another mile or two before it started to flicker, and then it just flat out died. I was quite surprised at that. I wasn't thrilled, but I wasn't too worried either. So I had that headlamp in the morning and I was prepared for this. I put it on, and we only got another mile or two more before that too started to flicker. It's just a little guy though, and I think the miles in the morning must have chewed into its battery. So I guess I can't be too surprised, but put it on the lowest setting. And unfortunately for the girl that I've been running with, she's starting to slow down quite a bit at this point, but that was a blessing in disguise for me. With the headlamp on the lowest setting, I started tailgating her and just watching the reflectors on her heels to see where I could go. We went for a couple miles more, and eventually we hit some dirt road. It was a little bit less technical than a lot of the stuff there. And then after a couple miles more of that, we got to a paved road section. At this point, I was getting nervous that in the bendy, even on the lowest setting, wasn't going to last. So I made the decision to split from her and just see if I could stretch the thing to get to the next aid station. So I knew immediately we had a bit of a road section, and it was dark out. There was about a half moon, but there must have been clouds out. I turned the thing off, and I ran that whole section in the pitch black. No problem, no big deal. I remember the next section from the year previous being pretty rocky, so I told her if my dad died, I would just stop. I'd sit out there and I'd wait. But fortunately, I got through it. Hopped on the trail, turned the headlamp on. I've looked it up since. The lowest setting on that bindi puts out a whopping 6 lumens. Someone since joked with me, that's like a lightning bug. Well, it's not that far off. It's like 15 lightning bugs. So that's all I had through there. And if you run PA trails, you know how nasty they can be. So it must have been comical watching me. I just kind of felt my way through. But I did get through most of that. And before we got to the end of the trail section, I actually caught another guy. And I was kind of excited. I figured I'd piggyback off of him. But the reason I caught him was because his headlamp was dying too. So the two of us, the blind led the blind, and we made it to that aid station. Figured I'd beg for a headlamp or something, but I had doubts that they'd be able to scrounge 2 of them up for each of us. Fortunately, they were able to get some AAAs for his headlamp. He took regular ones, and I figured maybe I'd beg someone to charge mine, but they scrounged up a second one. It wasn't the greatest, but it was enough to get going. I was not thrilled at this point. My time from last year was long gone. I had the legs, but even with this new headlamp, still couldn't see super great, so I couldn't even really put them to use. I ended up supplementing that headlamp with what little remained of the bindi, and it ended up dying before I got to the end, so I wouldn't have got there. Wasn't the race I was hoping for, but I guess I'm content enough to just have got the stupid finish in, and got another Western States qualifier. And so always works out in one way, shape, or form. And best of luck to all you folks out there. Bye.
Hey Trails Collective. I want to share a little bit about our day at World's End 100K this past weekend. I had the opportunity to crew and pace my friend Nathan Walker. This was his first time running the World's End 100K, and he had spent some time training on the course and was feeling pretty prepared for it. So kind of from a crew perspective, ready to have a good day and support him out there on the course. And as can be the case in ultras, things have ups and downs. So he started off the day really well and coming through aid stations right on target, and fueling was good, pacing was good, his spirits were good, but things do change. So when he came into the high knob aid station, not really on pace, spirits not so great. You were there, Tabitha. How do you think he looked at high knob?
He looked kind of dead. Oh. And then when he went to sit down, the chair fell back. Then he sat there for a while trying to get some calories back in and try to feel better.
Yep.
Then when he went to leave to get back on the trail, he almost fell down off a cliff.
Okay, but he made it, and with some encouragement from friends and his crew, we sent him out on the trail and just encouraged him to just make forward progress and put one foot in front of the other, and things turn around. Sometimes it takes 1 mile, sometimes it takes 10 miles, but things do turn around. So we went on to the next aid station and waited so that I could start pacing. And when I was going to pace him, you had an opportunity to volunteer at an aid station and help people out. So tell me, what are some things that happened to you at the aid station?
We just got a bunch of the food ready. We're making hot food like pierogies, grilled ham and cheese, plain grilled cheese, peanut butter and jelly, and a bunch of other rice snacks that people want.
Yeah, sounds good. Was there anything unique that you did while you were at this aid station?
Me and my sister decided to try what a goo tasted like. So
what a goo tastes like, okay.
So we picked a vanilla bean one, and it tasted fine at first, then it tasted like chemicals. So we put some in between 2 chocolate chip cookies, and for us they tasted like normal chocolate chip cookies because we didn't really put a lot, because we didn't want to ruin them.
Okay, so the goo was tolerable if you eat it with chocolate chip cookies.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like you had a good day at the aid station.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So jumped in and paced Nathan to the finish, and despite how Tabitha described him at the high knob aid station, he was able to turn things around, get some more energy, get in good spirits, and while pacing, we connected with some other runners out there on the trail and were able to offer them support as well in that final stretch to the finish. And he went home with a buckle. So it was, in my mind, a pretty successful day.
Hey Trails Collective, this is Coach Sayard Tanis, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what it's like to be a coach out on a race course when you have athletes racing. This weekend I had the privilege to be able to go over to World's End 100K, and I had 3 of my athletes running. I also had several other of my athletes out helping out these runners. They were crewing, pacing, cheering. It was just such an honor to see all of my team working together to help each other accomplish their goals, and it was a really incredible effort, everybody coming together. So leading into a race, I don't know who loses more sleep, me or the runners, because we have both put so much into it. They've put in the work, early mornings, carrying out the plans, late nights after work, working around family schedules. I feel like I've put my heart and soul into trying to read these individuals and help them bring out their potential and accomplish their goals on race day. So there are a lot of emotions and nerves leading into every single race. This time I got to be out there to see several of them and waiting on them coming through aid stations. In my mind, I'm running through the last many months of training, all the things that I know they've done to make them successful on that day, and then I'm just hoping that they're out there thinking of those same workouts, that they can draw confidence from each one of those hard days that they put in, and they could say, okay, you know, I remember this workout, and now I see why I did it. It was because of this. And then they have the confidence to carry on in that race, knowing that they are prepared. I am just sitting there waiting for them to come on through, and I have to remind myself to trust the process and the journey just as much as I ask them to trust the process. I have to believe that that body of work that they've put in is going to give them what they need on race day, and that's what they have to be out there believing 100% as well. Part of my heart and soul is out there on the race course. So if you see me at a race when I have my athletes racing, you might see me, but part of me is out there with them. So not only did I have 3 people racing there at World's End, I had 2 athletes racing other places as well. So my mind and my spirit are spread all over the place with those individuals. It's a very tight bond that a coach forms with an athlete. So I really do feel like part of me is out there on the course with them. So there were ups and downs at World's End. As with any race, especially in the ultra distances, you can't know 100% what's going to happen that day, how a person's body is going to respond that day. Stomach issues, injury issues, weather, there are always going to be variables. We cannot plan for everything. Again, as I'm waiting there at different aid stations, I'm running through my mind spreadsheet times that people should be coming through or close to when they should be coming through. I'm calculating paces in my mind. I am running through every scenario. You know, did we put the right things in the drop bags? Are the crew bringing out the supplies that they need at the right times as we planned? And so I'm just playing it all out in my head and then waiting to see them, and it all makes it worth it when you see their smiling faces come through. Or sometimes they're coming through with tears, and that's all part of it as well. And can I sit there and cry with them? Yes. And then I have to be able to put on a confident and happy face and, you know, push them to go forward or to make the hard decision when it comes that you have to pull the plug on a race. And sometimes that is the smart and right decision, even though nobody ever wants to make it. So World's End example, I did have an athlete that needed to pull the plug, and it was heartbreaking because with COVID this year, most everybody has lost their entire race season. For my athletes, it came down to World's End being basically the only race of the season. So to then have to pull out because of a injury is just, you know, the next level of loss in this whole season of losses. But we need to live to fight another day and talk that through with the athlete and then make the plans going forward. So there are highs and lows in every race. World's End was definitely no exception. I am so incredibly proud of my athletes no matter what, because I see them with their attitude, their grit, the smile they put on when they aren't having a great day. You know, that attitude. I have some athletes with their attitudes are just incredible. I would see myself, I would break down in some of those situations, but they are able to find the positive. They are able to push themselves through, and it's just an honor to be able to see them play out the race on race day. All the work leading up to it, I feel like I'm putting in work, they're putting in work. It's like we are working on a piece of artwork together, and race day is the day we finally get to see our painting and see what it looks like, that final product in that block of training. And it's just so rewarding, and World's End did not disappoint as far as the emotions and seeing the human spirit and what people can do to work together. And it was a great day out on the trails, and I look forward to many, many more. And To my athletes, you guys are incredible, and part of me is always with you guys.
Hey there, Trails Collective. This is Grayce Langheine, aka Hot Pants, coming to you with a race report from the World's End 100K that just happened this past Saturday. And first off, let me tell you about this race. It is 100K. It's about 64 miles, and it's over 12,000 feet of gain. And if you look at the elevation profile, you might say like, oh, that looks like some flat spots, some runnable. Like, it's not runnable. And then you say, well, where is this race, Grayce? World's End. It's in World's End State Park, hence the name, World's End 100K. And you say, I've never heard of that. Most people have not. It is in Pennsylvania, also known as Rocksylvania. And it is a rocky, gnarly, nasty course. It is an awesome course. It's part of the Pennsylvania Triple Crown. If you've never heard of the Triple Crown, the Pennsylvania Triple Crown is 150K, World's End 100K, and Eastern States 100 miler. If you do all three of them, then you get to say that you've done the Pennsylvania Triple Crown, which is just like an awesome thing to be able to say. You don't really get much out of it except for like that, but that's like really, really cool. And as a bonus, you can do the Black Forest 100K, which is as intimidating as it sounds. That one's coming up this weekend. I can't wait to see how it goes. And I'm out here. So I'm out here at William H. Kane County Park. I should have some trail runners coming up behind me anytime now. We'll see how that goes. So I just ran the race, and man, I've been fascinated by the Pennsylvania Triple Crown for a long time now, because Pennsylvania, it's called Rocksylvania for a reason. It has the gnarliest, nastiest trails, not the biggest climbs, but they're just not runnable. And for some reason, that just sounds awesome to me. So 2 years ago, I ran the World's End 50K. Beautiful course. You can see the Endless Mountains. It's called the Endless Mountains area. And beautiful views, awesome aid stations, and people are so friendly and nice, which makes sense. I should do the 100K, right? So last year, I signed up to do the 100K. I signed up to do the 100K, and my friend Kieran, she gave me the best piece of advice, which was, so you're signed up for the 100K. Grayce, don't worry. Most people don't finish their first year. It's okay if you don't finish. Which sounds like terrible. Like, isn't she your friend? She is my friend. It was awesome advice because I did not finish. I got to the Brunnerdale aid station, mile 50, and that was even a miracle because the course was terrible. Anybody who did this race in 2019 will tell you. It stormed the whole week leading up to it. There was a mud pit. There was hail. There were lightning balls during the race. It was crazy. And on top of that, I didn't know that I was running on a torn hamstring tendon. So last year was a DNF. I came into the Brunnerdale aid station over an hour past cutoff. So I took 3 months off, fixed my injury, and I'm a back of pack runner already. I'm like back of the pack. I've been like all the way back, right? And I started working on my fitness. I started making a comeback. I ran the 24-hour idiot race over the winter. And then I did Conestoga FKT. I did Mason-Dixon Longest Day 100K. I'm coming back with a vengeance, ready to go for a World's End 100K. Also, Andrew Simpson lives 3 doors down from me, so I'm pretty sure that makes me faster. So I get to the start line this year. I'm feeling good. I have an awesome crew. Shout out to Jill and Trish. And my third pacer, Chris, who is awesome. I got best crew, best pacers, best race, and the best course conditions. High of 71? Are you kidding me? Yes, thank you. So I'm feeling good, and the biggest topic of conversation during this entire race was, did you run it last year? Did you run it last year? Because it was so insane last year, I'm telling you. Man, it's coming down now. It's raining a little bit in here. It's fine. We'll keep going. So I'm feeling good. And mid to back of pack, man, if you've never run, in that area in the back of the pack. It's so much fun. It's cool people. Like, what did you do last year? I don't know. What did you do? What are you doing next year? And it's just cool conversation and cool people. So I really enjoyed myself. I got to Brunnerdale Aid Station almost 2 hours sooner than I did the year before. However, still didn't get there fast enough. I made cutoff. I'll tell you that. I got there at 8:20, cutoff was 9 o'clock. So it was like, I wanted to get there by 8. I wasn't there like as fast as I wanted to be. That's what I mean. And my pack broke, so that was insane, but I was like, I'm gonna keep going, right? So I kept going, and I'm coming into Fern Rock Aid Station, and my pacer is like, wow, it's getting a little rocky. I'm like, yeah, you wait, it gets worse. And it got worse. And so I keep going. I'm like, I don't think this is gonna happen, but I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep trying. I get to Fern Rock Aid Station, 8 minutes past cutoff. So they cut me out. I made it 58 miles. That was the last aid station before the end. 6 miles to the finish. The last 6 miles are actually the easiest of the entire race. It's mostly flat and a big downhill. I didn't make it this year, but like, I feel like a winner because I did everything that I could do. You know, I don't have any regrets. I feel really good about my race. I went up to the course ahead of time and I practiced. Like, that's what this course demands of you. If you're Becky Kosek and you go off course and you come back, like, she left it all out there. Misty Trowbridge, you know, she was having stomach issues early on, and then she came back from it and she left her heart all out there. And that's what this race demands of you. You leave your heart and your soul in the endless mountains, and you come out the other side stronger no matter what happens, whether you finish second or you finish right before cutoff or you DNF like I did. Man, it was a cool experience. I hope to see you there next year. Maybe you'll watch me DNF again. I don't know. We'll see what happens. Whatever you do, stay safe and happy trails.